Hey guys, this is Ollie and I'm back with another character preview because we're about to start a brand new festival. The Festival of the Caven Realm is basically behind us. That was a faction, it was all about teamwork. We saw Nimrod going in, spreading some darkness, Queen Akeshru moving in, spreading some shades, even more darkness. Umano was spreading yet more darkness, affecting everybody. Ranaklu was creating a million shades, and then Voyasa was standing on the sideline like a cheerleader and telling everybody else to work harder. This new faction happens to be the Sacred Grove, and these units like to basically remain in nature by themselves. They are not all about teamwork, they like to work on their own, which seems that they are basically the polar opposite of the Caven Realm. The first unit that we're going to see is called Silverroot. He happens to be the leader of the Sacred Grove. There's a lot to unpack here, so let's not waste any time and take a closer look at this unit. First off, it's a warrior, which is a bit disappointing because there were a lot of people who were extremely excited about a new green mage, because mages are really good against dragons, because dragons happen to be warriors and mages do more damage against warriors. You know where I'm going with this. The unit is lacking one symbol that could be very important, and that is the range symbol. So we have a warrior that is not ranged. That means you have to connect with your opponent. That shouldn't be all that hard given the fact that it's a mounted unit. So that means he's got lots of movement. In fact, he can move 4 tiles, like almost all the other units that are mounted with the exception of Tim as far as I know. So he should have a very easy time connect with your opponents or get away from your opponents, which could come into play considering that we see a brand new trait, which is Bushkin. Bushkin is a very interesting trait. It does not replace the regular tile effect of a shrub, which means you're taking 50% less damage while you're in a shrub. On top of that, you're also dealing more damage while you're in a shrub. So that sounds like a really cool effect in theory. However, there is a chance that your opponent is playing a lot of ranged units, you're hiding in the shrub, they are all attacking you from a distance, and you don't know what to do because you need to get out of the shrub to connect with your opponent because Silverroot does not happen to be ranged. So let's look at the active and the passive. The active is the murder of crows. Alfred Hitchcock would be proud. He's calling crows that are raining on the field and they are dealing damage to your opponents. And obviously the higher you level this ability, the more damage you're going to do. These crows favor summons, so if Dogger was a problem so far, there is your answer, or there might be your answer. And they also have a very weird trait, and that is that they favor physical armor. So normally when you hit someone, physical armor takes up 50% of the incoming damage, up to 50% of the incoming damage, and then the rest is basically being reduced from the life. Here the crows are first dealing entirely with the physical armor, and that sounds like an effect that was basically built into this ability to make sure that it doesn't get out of control. So this seems like an ability that had to be balanced to a certain degree, because otherwise it could just be game deciding on its own. Now, this unit does not have a passive effect. I mean, yes, on paper there is a passive effect, but in actuality it's just like an add-on, a tacked-on version for the active effect, which is the most disappointing thing about this unit if you're asking me. The Bird Whisperer means that Silverroot can summon even more crows, so it gets crazier the more turns have passed. And then there's one more thing that is extremely important. He's also dealing more damage per crow, per enemy that has been vanquished, and that's extremely important that it says enemy and not hero. So if you're going up in Onslaught, for example, and there's a million summons basically heading your way and you're taking them out with all your other units, and Silverroot is just standing in the back, the clock is basically ticking. He's just waiting to like do more damage, send more crows, and just wipe the board completely. So this seems like a very potent active ability, but at the end of the day, my wrap up of this segment of this entire video is that this is basically a one-trick pony. Looking at the stats of Silverroot, I've got a couple of heroes that we can compare him to in each rarity that I have stats for, with the exception of the legendary rarity, of course. Generally speaking, seems like a unit that has a little bit less health than you see typically for other warriors. Warriors tend to be extremely beefy and also bulky. He does do more damage than most warriors, and he's also doing magical damage. This may or may not be important depending on who you're going up against. Generally speaking, that should mean that Silverroot is really good against other warriors because they tend to have physical armor, and magical damage just circumvents physical armor. However, normally warriors are really good against rogues because rogues happen to have magical armor most of the time. So in that case, if you got troubles with rogues, and to be like speaking from experience here in Arena, rogues tend to be the biggest problem makers, with the exception of mages of course, Silverroot does not seem to be the right person for the job. So that already calls into question whether that unit is really viable for PvP, at least in my book. In terms of physical armor, he's one of the worst units I've seen. Obviously, you can fix that to a certain degree by handing him some equipment, but generally speaking, this does not look super convincing for me. But I believe all of that is just more reason to look into the active ability. I think this unit was basically made not exactly paper thin, but thinner than your average warrior on purpose to make sure that he doesn't survive forever, because otherwise the murder of crows is just going to be a game deciding effect that is immediately turning the tide in a fight. So let's look what the active ability Murder of Crows can do. So here we got a 1 versus 1, which is actually possible to play in the Snowprint offices against Bullmon, and that's exactly what I talked about earlier. So now he can hide in a shrub, but
and what you gonna do
if you're going up against the ranged unit? And we can see that here he's even being dragged out of the bush, but he just goes back into the shrub. Now he's gonna get hit for the second time, and there's not much you can do, because if you go out of the shrub, you're gonna die to the attack of Bullmon. He can even go on high ground and connect from above. So you're basically just hiding in a bush for a couple of turns. Now it is go time. If we count exactly 3 turns have passed since the start of the game, so that means that the passive ability should give you 3 more crows on top of the 3 crows that you get regardless of when you're using the active ability. So now we're calling the Murder of Crows, and we can see if we pause this at the exactly right moment, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 crows. So 6 crows rained down on Bullmon, and despite not taking any damage whatsoever before this, he is immediately being taken out. So here we see a PvP fight, 1 versus 1, Giggs versus Silverroot. Silverroot is trying to get out of the way, prepare for his active, gets into a corner, which means that Giggs can even spawn less frogs. Now we go for the Murder of Crows. We get rid of all the eggs, we get rid of all the summons, because the crows are first going for these. And then it's only Giggs versus Silverroot. Giggs is out of his special, but Silverroot can now connect and basically take down Giggs. And again, you saw the dilemma. You want to run away from the opponent. This is not a unit that wants to like storm into the front line and attack right away. It is really all about the active, which could be good, could be bad, really depends on how strong the active really is. Here we've got a PvP fight, and it shows us a couple of things that are going to change in the future, or they may or may not change, with Silverroot now being in the game. Because this PvP fight starts like a regular PvP fight. You're going in hard, you're throwing everything at your opponents that you've got. We even see that here with Nimrul going in, hitting the opponents, dealing damage, and so on. But what is Silverroot doing? Silverroot is hiding in a bush in the backyard. That's not something that you've ever seen in PvP. The only unit that regularly gets played in PvP and that doesn't need to be at the front line and connect with an opponent happens to be Accio. Because of Accio not having a range restriction. You can have Accio on the other side of the map, and he's still gonna turn your summons into killing machines. And now here you're basically sending forward all of your other units. You're just putting Silverroot in the back, try to take out as many opposing units as possible, which also adds to the damage that you're doing with the Murder of Crows. And then when the time is right, or rather when there's nothing else left to do because all your other units are dead, you can call in the Murder of Crows for a cleanup. And again, the big question is, can this unit basically close out the fight after all of your other units have put in the work, similar to what Accio often does. So here we see that Giggs goes down, and that is the win for this PvP fight. Here we got a second PvP fight that is very similar. Silverroot immediately hides in a bush, basically doesn't want to connect with the opponents. All your other units are doing the work. They're going back and forth, trading blows with your opponent. They're going in hard, they're using Katsume, they're bringing in Granny, they're bringing in Queen Akeshru, everybody's doing some damage, and even Tanamo is going down. That's not something that I'm used to seeing in my PvP fights. And then after you've just like hit back, try to kill at least one opposing unit, which means you're doing a little bit of extra damage. Then there's Nimrul doing his gigantic active attack, which is like just taking out opponents left and right. there's the Murder of Crows, the summons go down, the other unit goes down, and now there's only a warrior remaining, and thanks to the fact that we're doing magical damage, it's much easier for us to get rid of the warrior, clean up the board and win this PvP fight. So it seems like there are scenarios when this unit is extremely viable. PvP is not known to be a game mode that is lasting forever. Generally speaking, my PvP matches they take 1.5 turns, because if it's a very close map, it is the first turn and the match is over. And that is true for all the players in Legend League that have a very strong team. And almost all of them, at least the ones in the top 20, go either undefeated or they have a maximum of 2 losses over the entire season. So they're going like 110 wins to 2 losses. So this game is all about offense, and a unit that wants to stay in the back and just like sit it out, basically become a ticking time bomb, is not exactly your dream for a PvP match, because PvP is just basically the exact opposite of that. There is, however, similar to Voyasa, one game mode where all of that could be changing and you don't mind having a game last several turns, and that is of course guild raid. And as we pointed out earlier, there is one major important factor. These crows don't need to look for different targets, they can all rain down on the same target. So let's see what Silverroot can do in guild raid. So here we see a legendary Silverroot in guild raid. He's already got lots and lots of damage thanks to Yasmin that was buffing him for a couple of turns. That's why we see 912 magical damage. And he's doing 357 ability damage with the Murder of Crows. Now I've got the Murder of Crows for level 49. There he's doing 669. It's 753 at level 50. So it's obviously not a pimped out Silverroot with level 50. And at level 35 he's doing 225 ability damage. So he's right in the middle. So something like level 42, 44, something like that seems to be the level that this unit is on. So he's not leveled beyond belief. This is not like the highest version of this unit. He can do even more damage. So let's see how much he can do after all of the other summons have connected here. So we're just double checking the Bird Whisperer and the Murder of Crows. The dragon was at 10,670 and now he's at 17,400. So that's basically 7,000 damage with a single attack. And this is the second to last turn. So that means you can do that twice with a Yasmin, and we are going to see that here. So that's some very smart play. Thank you very much, Snowprint, for that. The summons all go in. They all deal like good amount of damage. Seems like level 35 summons if I had to guess, something like that. Then there's a Giggs attack, and now the second Murder of Crows is among us. And look at this. The dragon is at 21,000 and now he's at 29,000. So he's doing 8,000 damage with the second attack. Now you need to compare whether you feel like this is worth including in your guild raid team. But speaking from experience, there are very few units that can deal 7,000 damage with their active ability, even if it's on the last turn. Yes, of course, Arceus comes to mind. I've seen some crazy stuff with even a Pari doing lots and lots of damage with her active. I've heard stories about Naevis that can do lots of damage when she's leveled up beyond belief. But this is not a level 50 Silverroot, this is level 42, something like that, 44 Silverroot. And he's already doing 7,000 and 8,000 damage. So that doesn't sound like a bad unit, it certainly sounds like a unit that could be extremely viable for guild raid. So those are basically my closing thoughts for this unit. Overall, it's really hard to tell whether this unit is going to be worth the investment going for the epic version. I guess there have been worse units that have been in the festival, so I would encourage you to go hard at the festival. Of course, it's my festival guide that is going to tell you everything you need to know so you can easily unlock that unit at epic. It's going to take roughly 2 gem refreshes per day, but then you can actually unlock that unit as an epic. And I think it's quite an exciting unit, and depending on the other units that are part of the Sacred Grove faction, there could be some synergies, who knows? Or maybe they just all want to be like loners, don't want to play with anybody else, and there's not much synergy. Who knows? It's kind of too early to tell. Alright. That's it for today, guys. I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know what you think about Silverroot by leaving a comment below the video, and then we're going to see each other very soon, either on the official Discord, on the Discord of my team Eternal Nexus, where you can become a part, just apply on the Discord, or in the arena where I'm trying to kick some butt in the Legend League. See you guys very soon. Try to take out as many of your units of your... Jesus Christ! and depending on the other units that are part of the Sacred Grove faction, there could be some synergies, who knows, or maybe they all just like to play with themselves.